Hello and welcome everyone to another Toon Under podcast, the Southern Hemisphere's one-stop shop for all things Newcastle United, the original and best. Joining me tonight is Dimi from down in Melbourne. How you doing, Dimi? Happy New Year, mate.
Happy New Year, mate. Happy New Year to all the Geordies around the world. It's a very stinking hot day down here. I was just saying before, it's currently 36 degrees at 8 p.m. and my air conditioner doesn't work in this room, so I'm absolutely steaming. But not as hot and under the collar as I was last night after the 0-0 draw. But we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah, we'll discuss everything about that game shortly. I'm feeling a little bit worse for wear. 5-hour drinks package. Anyone who did tune in for the live watch along last night would have seen my small but brief cameo in my drunken state. But it is what it is. I'm kind of a little bit all over the place. I am in the process of moving house at the moment as well, so it's a little bit unorganized, shall we say. A little bit worse for wear today, but we'll crack on and discuss what was a pretty poor performance all round. Not the best of results, but we'll try and put our own spin on it, put things into perspective a little bit. So yeah, let's crack on with that. So obviously New Year's Eve game in the UK, 3 p.m. kickoff. It was a 1 p.m. New Year's Day here in Australia, or 2 p.m. in the morning, 2 a.m. In Melbourne. So we had a live watch along. Was quite surprised that some of the guys weren't going out or doing anything. I guess that's what you have when you've got small kids that you need to look after the next day. I was dragged out to an all-night 5-hour drinks package party. Great fun. Had way too much food, way too much drink, but managed to come home and watch the match. Pretty surprised at the conditions. So obviously, as everyone knows, we've played out a 0-0 draw against Leeds at home at St James's Park. Not exactly the best footballing spectacle in the world, it has to be said. It was not the best of games. Not just the result, but the football itself that was on display was lacking a little bit. But it was raining really heavily. I was fully expecting the ground to get waterlogged at some point. It shows you what a good condition St James's Park pitch is at the moment, and that they could handle that amount of rain without any kind of sort of issues cropping up. So that was actually probably the one good thing to come out of that game. Other than look, we kept another clean sheet. We hopefully haven't had any new injuries crop up from that game. It was a scrappy performance. I don't think our players played particularly well. The ref certainly didn't help anything. We'll discuss that in a minute. But look, 0-0. It's not the doom and gloom, and we'll discuss social media now. We may as well. It was always going to crop up that we've been on such a high. We've been riding our form. We've been playing really well. We've been getting the results, playing some fantastic football. And it was always bound to happen that as soon as we either dropped points or had a bad performance, the internet as a whole was going to lose its collective shit. And it was going to be the worst performance ever. And we need to completely rehash the squad. And Eddie Howe's got this completely wrong. It's not the end of days that it has been made out to be on social media. What was your initial reaction from some of the social media posts, Dimi? Because you were kind of like, and we'll come to some player discussions soon enough as well. But what was your overall thoughts on the game, the performance, the result, and sort of where it sits for us as a team going forward?
Yeah, obviously a very frustrating result, coming off 6 wins, coming off the fantastic performance last week against Leicester. Not that you expect to win, but Newcastle these days, we do expect to win most games. That's how we've been going, especially in 2022. So Leeds coming to St James's Park, New Year's Eve, atmosphere heaving, you'd be pretty confident getting a result, or at least being able to score. And obviously, as good as our defence is, thinking if we score at least one these days might even be enough for us. So frustrating performance. As you said, it was borderline monsoon rain at times, and the ball was rolling heavily, and the tackles were flying in. I think the referee definitely lost control of that game in the second half, and tackles were flying in, and definitely suited the way that Leeds wanted to sort of start the game and shut it down. So that didn't help us, and that shows another side to probably what we're going to be experiencing, not just for the rest of this season, but for the future as well. Obviously, we're a team now with a mark on our back. We're not just an upstart, had a good couple of games sort of team. We're a team that's going to be hopefully challenging for things in the near future. So teams going to come to St James's Park and they're going to be battling for a point. They're going to be wasting time. They're going to be putting men behind the ball, flying in with their tackles, doing anything they can to disrupt us. And unfortunately, this morning it worked. Although, despite all that, we'll go through it in a minute. But we did have enough chances, I think, to still win the game, even with all that going on in the background. So frustrating result, yes. Clean sheet is good, and you never take for granted a clean sheet, considering where we've been the last couple of seasons, where we seem to be shipping 2 or 3 goals weekly. So clean sheets are always welcome, and yeah, like you touched on, the social media reaction was probably due. There was too much positivity. There was 6 wins in a row. We haven't lost a game since Liverpool, since the 98th minute goal at Anfield. So there was always going to be a collective uproar or losing of everyone's mind when there was a bad result or a disappointing performance. So this is what it was. And if this is going to be our worst performance and we still pick up a point, I think we're going to take that every day of the week. So we'll get onto the individuals in a moment in terms of where some of the criticism was labelled. And I certainly was one questioning some players in the 11, but overall, yeah, you can't really fault the boys and fault the effort. The effort was there, just wasn't our day on the night.
Oh, for sure. And I think if we take a step back from the performance and the result and the expectations, I think, look, we haven't lost, we haven't conceded. There's 2 massive plus points there. Okay, look, we haven't managed to score, but it is getting to that point now where we've established ourselves as one of the better sides in the league, and we're winning games and we're playing well, that we're seeing more and more of these teams come to St James's Park looking to park the bus, looking to just try and scrape a point, see what they can get on the break if they get anything, look to try and disrupt us. Now, look, the weather played its part last night, and I'm not going to say it didn't. It helped Leeds in terms of creating a scrappy game. We didn't have that flow to our game, and credit to Leeds for doing all of that. The ref was a little bit hit and miss. I don't think he had, and we've discussed this on our group chat, where I don't think he had like necessarily a bad game and dropped loads of clangers and was really biased towards Leeds or anything. There were a couple of like borderline calls that maybe could have been sort of reviewed with VAR or something like that. But it was more that it was just this scrappy game that he kind of lost control of, and it really played into Leeds' hands. It was kind of like almost where there's this old-fashioned cup tie mentality where, Leeds are the League Two side coming to St James's Park for a like, 4th round FA Cup tie, and the rest just letting them get away with kicking everything above grass because they're the underdogs and they should be allowed to do that. It's 2 Premier League sides, and we need to kind of get the mentality of the refs, I think, just at that level of, look, we'll let a little bit go because of the weather, but at some stage we've got to kind of, put a bit of control in it for player safety and to make sure that, it's being beamed out around the world. We need to have a spectacle. You can't have those sorts of games where the refs are just picking and choosing on what they're calling. There were times where I felt personally, and I'll get your opinion as well, but the ref kind of let things go where they probably should have stopped them. He stopped things where it probably should have been left to go. He's played advantage where there's no advantage. He's like played sort of called play on, or he's pulled play up when there is a clear advantage from a foul. Just little niggly fouls all the time that he was whistling for, and in that sort of condition, I don't think you can be over officiating because the weather's not going to be conducive to that. So, I mean, what did you make of the ref performance? Because I know that he's copped a load of criticism as well. As I said, I don't think he's had an absolute nightmare, but I just don't feel he had control of the game.
Yeah, I think you put it perfectly there. He never had control of the game, and in that sort of game where there's one team who's scrapping and fighting and clawing for a nil or draw, which that team used to be us. We used to be that team with Rafa or with Bruce that we're hanging on by the skin of our teeth for a result. So we've been there ourselves, but when there's that sort of atmosphere and there's that many challenges going in that are going unpunished or aren't being pulled up early. And in that sort of game, especially with the weather, if you don't stamp your mark early as a referee, players are smart. They'll keep pushing the envelope on as far as they can until they get reprimanded. So that sort of game probably needs a strong ref to sort of cut that out early. And it was getting out of hand at a point where I think injury time, Melier got shoved over. He tumbled over like a pork chop. I think Joe Linton shoved him over, and then everything was just about handbags at the end. But definitely he lost control and he didn't stamp his authority in the game. I also felt just on the side with the referee, he didn't look the fittest referee. Didn't look like he was covering the ground well. He was sort of trudging around. I don't know if it was wet. He had the old lead boots, but definitely not the fittest referee. And maybe that probably didn't help the fact that he couldn't pull up fouls earlier, or he just wasn't in the right position at times to make calls because he's too fat, basically.
My sympathy goes out to him. Health kick in this January. It's the new year. Health kick. So obviously we've touched on the fact that the teams are coming to St James's Park looking to try and sit back. It's now getting to the point where it seems to be a legitimate tactic for teams because it is working. And we are struggling to break those players down, to break those sorts of teams down. We've seen it with Bournemouth. We've now seen it with Leeds. We've seen it with lower league teams in the League Cup as well. Now, one of the players that's come in for a lot of criticism is Sean Longstaff over this game. Now, you yourself have made it known that you weren't overly keen on his performance and in his quality. Now, he's missed a couple of really good chances. It happens. My personal viewpoint is this sort of a game was something that really highlighted the need for upgrading those positions. We've kind of got players who work hard for the team. They put a proper effort in. They like graft hard. They cover the ground. They play well in a particular role, but they kind of rely on other players around them to do the heavy lifting, so to speak. The little bit of quality from Bruno or Miggy or someone else who's going to sort of provide that extra quality in the side. And Longstaff's kind of there to kind of fill a role, make it difficult for the opposition, close players down, do his part for the press under Howe. Now, I felt that his chances were pretty good. I think he probably should have scored them. A better player probably would have. And then we're sitting here talking about a really scrappy result that we've managed to pull 3 points out the bag for. And there's sort of those sorts of games where if you want to take that step to the next level, you need to be converting them into wins by just that sheer bit of individual quality. Now, Longstaff has been great. He is someone that I would love to have as a squad player, but I think it's pretty apparent after last night's game that, he is limited in terms of his upper tier skill level and what he can bring to the table. Now, would you say that sort of improving those sorts of players are going to get us over the hill against these sorts of teams and this sort of tactic? Or what do you see us being able to do? So obviously have your rant about Longstaff himself and just the players in general, because I don't think he was the only one that had a bad game against Leeds. I think Joe Linton was poor. I think Bruno was pretty non-existent. Wilson didn't really do much when he was on. Chris Wood, I thought, was very poor. And it's that sort of game where, it probably needed less finesse. But yeah, look, have a chat about that for you. And what do you see as an option for us to be able to break down those sorts of teams?
So first of all, with Longstaff, look, I was a bit critical of him on social media last night. I did think that his his standing in the team is definitely something that we need to, I believe, improve. I mean, he's been fantastic for us. He works his socks off. He's a decent link man, but even the missed chances isn't really what I'm criticizing him for on a general basis. It's, for me, he doesn't fill you with enough confidence on the ball, receiving it as that deep player that we need. Because if Bruno gets marked out or if Bruno's closed down, even last night, I mean, the conditions aside, Longy can get dispossessed, and it has happened previous games this season. So that's where I've got the main beef with him. He's quality on the ball. He can dally on it, and he can be pickpocketed. So for me, I think if we improve that position, that probably opens up Bruno even further. And again, that's where the John Joe Shelby potential injury hurts you as well, because John Joe slotting in that position. Not that John Joe's going to finish those chances either, but John Joe doesn't give the ball away potentially at all, or not even half as much as Longstaff can. So that's the small margins where we're talking about, where becoming a team from potentially 5th, 6th, 7th to 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or even higher potentially. So that's no slide on Longstaff. He's been very good this season. Like you said, in his role, he's mastered his role this season. I mean, no one would have thought at the start of the season he'd be a core player for us, playing week in, week out, and he's been fantastic. So you can't fault him for his effort and what he's done for us, but we're an ambitious club and we want to be an ambitious team. So for us to be ambitious, I think that's definitely one spot that we can look to improve and can look to fill. So I think that's something we need to be looking at in if not in January, in the summer. Hopefully in January there could be some steals about potentially Tillemans, potentially a few others who may have not many months on their contract left. We might be able to get on a bargain deal. That potentially could be something for us. But in terms of the tactics, what teams are doing now at St James's Park, it has happened a few times. I mean, the Bournemouth game where we're up in Sydney with the boys watching that game, that was another backs to the wall game by Bournemouth, and we scrapped a 1-1 draw. Palace this year, I think twice have come to St James's and drawn twice, 0-0, once in the cup and once in the league. So there's definitely a blueprint for us, and I think the main issue for us is we don't have a number 10 centrally to pick a killer ball. Most of our goals or most of our better moments come in transition, where we nick the ball or we feed the ball quickly from the back to the front. Trippier might play a through ball or Botman, etc., and we get in behind that way. So when you do sit deep against us, we don't have that number 10 who demands the ball and can pick a slide through pass. So that's where we need to potentially, again, not in January, but maybe in the summer, look to improve the squad, having a player in the squad to perform that role. If there's a team who comes to St James's and shuts up shop and there's no space out wide for your Maxis or your Miggies, that could be a player that we could bring on for 20 minutes or half an hour who could unlock the key and get us that scrappy 1-0 win that might be the difference between finishing 4th and 5th.
Yeah, it's one of those. I felt like those sorts of games are the ones where you need that midfield player who's willing to take a pop from outside the box, and we don't seem to do that. Just someone who's going to make them think twice about sitting deep. If we stay off him, he's capable of scoring from long range, or at least he's going to have a go. And then, the keeper may parry the ball out, but then who knows where it's going to go, or it might take a deflection. So we can't afford that. So we're going to push out, which then creates more space. So we don't really have that sort of player at the moment. Bruno's not really going to do that. And there's talk where I'm sure Lee will bring it up at some point in a future podcast about his thoughts about Bruno pushing up or playing deep, or which we prefer as an option going forward. But for me, I think, we are very one-dimensional with our attacking at the moment. When we win the ball, we like to break at pace, get in behind teams, and if they're sitting deep, as you said, but we can't exploit that, and we need someone who's just got a little bit more quality on the ball to be able to thread those balls through for a proper striker. And look, Chris Wood's not the most mobile of strikers. I think he's done a great job for us, but he's not going to be that top tier goal scorer that we really need to move forward. We haven't seen much of Isak since he's came since he's club record signing move to the club. from the bits that we have seen of him, he looks absolute quality. But the injury came at a really bad time for him. Hopefully, he's nearing a return to fitness, and we'll start to see him coming into the first team a little bit more, offering that little bit extra options up front, a little bit of extra sort of quality on the ball, a little bit more sort of reassurance up top. So we'll see how we go. Let's have a look through the stats anyway. Look, Newcastle, 16 shots to 8 from Leeds, and 5 shots on target to 1 of Leeds. That pretty much sums up what you were saying pre the podcast going out. Was we had opportunities to score still. We haven't sort of been battered by Leeds. We haven't been really frustrated in terms of just like a really scrappy midfield contest with nothing really created. We've had shots and we've created sort of opportunities for ourselves. On another day, one of those goes in and we walk away with a scrappy 1-0 win, and we're sitting here singing a completely different tune, really. 59% possession to 41% possession in our favour probably sums up the fact that Leeds were willing to concede possession to us and sit deep. Obviously, the passes, 419 to Newcastle to 297 for Leeds. So, over 100 more passes for Newcastle. We've had 77% pass accuracy to 63% pass accuracy for Leeds. 13 fouls for us, 19 for Leeds. Dirty Leeds at their best. 5 yellow cards. It wasn't that dirty game that probably needed more cards or a red card. It was just that the ref needed to stamp on it, as we've said. And look, we've had a few offsides. We've had loads more corners, and I think this season has been a little bit frustrating for me in particular, where we've built this side of absolute giants and we don't seem to really be capitalizing on corners as much as we otherwise probably should be, given the height advantage that we have against most sides. What do you make of those anyway? And sort of, does that tell the whole story of the game for you, or is it sort of, we've dominated the game according to those stats, but it doesn't really play out in terms of what the general consensus from most fans this morning has been?
Yeah, I think the stats do show that we've dominated the game. I think one of the key stats there you can see if you watch this on YouTube is the shots on target. Only 5 of our 16 shots on target, and I can count probably at least 4 or 5 of our shots were skied in very good positions. I mean, obviously Longstaff had a couple. Joe Linton had one. I'm forgetting. I believe there was another one as well. I think Cher headed one wide in the first half. So there was definitely opportunities for us to work the goalkeeper a lot more than we did. And that was a frustration that we couldn't work him more. I mean, he did make a couple of good saves, I think, in the second half of Cher. So we didn't probably work him as much as we could. And obviously with the set pieces, like you said, we do have giants all over the pitch. And we have been scoring some goals off set pieces, but they're usually the trick set pieces, I like to say, like the short corner or the short free kick that we sort of catch teams off guard with. We're not sort of winning that first ball header or just like you said, lumping it in the box with 6'7" Dan Burn and 6'4" Botman and just saying attack the ball and hit it in. Basically, we're not doing that, which is a little frustrating. But yeah, the stats definitely do show we dominated and probably weren't as clinical as we have been in recent times.
Yeah, we seem to be obsessed with cute corner routines, which I just find like really frustrating when they come up with these intricate passing maneuvers. Just put the ball in the box. You've got like so much height. Even Shah's like 6'3", 6'4". You've got Chris Wood in there as well. Just get it in the box and let someone have a go at it, because who knows if they get their first head to it first. Then who knows where it goes. Even if they don't score from it, it might have a ricochet and then someone else gets on the end of it or something. So yeah, infinitely frustrating, but it is what it is. We have scored a few. We're certainly getting better, but for the amount of corners we've been getting this season, I would have hoped that we would be getting a little bit more conversion rate than we are. So look, I know it's never easy and it's never nice when the momentum falls off and we've had a bad performance, we've had a bad game, and it's probably the performance I think that a lot of people are a bit down about. But in terms of doom and gloom and everything's crap and, we need a full rehash of the squad and loads of players are not good enough, look, those players have got us to where we are on the table. And I'm going to show them the latest table because this is actually something that looks really good for me. And let's not forget, Man City drew as well over the weekend. So, they're flying high. They've lost more ground on Arsenal as well. We're still sitting in third spot. And now with all of the games in hand, and even if Man United and Tottenham win their games in hand against us, the lowest we're going to go off those games in hand is fourth spot. Now, given where we started off last year with how much we thought we were all going to get relegated and everything was doom and gloom then, having a draw against a scrappy team is not the end of the world when we've been on such a really good run. Now, the beautiful thing for me on that one is the goals against column is we've got the best defense in the league by a margin now as well, because Arsenal have actually conceded a few goals, and we're sitting on 11 goals conceded for the season. Another clean sheet against Leeds. I just think that's absolutely fantastic. We're scoring goals, but we haven't got Isak, we haven't got Wilson fit for most of the season. Maxey's been out for a lot of the season. So we've been really lucky that Miggy found form. But, how much pride do you take, Dimi, in terms of that league table and our recent form that's got us to the point where expectations are maybe overtaking reality a little bit?
Absolutely. I mean, you're not going to get disappointed looking at that league table. I mean, sitting in third with a goal difference of plus 21. I don't think in all my years following Newcastle, over 20 odd years, I've never seen us with a goal difference plus 20, let alone plus 20 after not even half the season. So there's definitely not much to complain about at the moment as a Newcastle fan, which is why you can see this morning we get a draw and all of a sudden the world's ending. So we need to find something to complain about clearly as football fans. But yeah, like you said, we've got the best defense in the league. We have been scoring goals. Obviously, this morning was we didn't find the back of the net, but there's not much to complain about. And if you look at that goal difference, that probably shows after 17 games the true quality of how good we've been this season. And even Man United just behind us on 32 points, 2 points behind us with a game in hand, they've got goal difference of plus 4. So,
yeah,
I mean, they've been winning as well, but it looks like just from those stats there that not that they've been getting lucky, but they've been getting a lot of 1-0 victories and sort of scrapping their way over the line where we've been comfortably winning a lot of games, which is nice to see. So, yeah, definitely not doom and gloom, and definitely not sick of seeing Newcastle in the top 4 after 17 games.
Oh, for sure. Now, one last thing I wanted to cover was something you brought up in our group chat this morning, was our 2022 record is a sight to behold. Now, I had a chat to you beforehand, before we started this, and the record for the year of 2022. So this is not like this current season. This is the
calendar year.
If the calendar year was turned into a league table. We've played 36 games. We've won 21. We've drawn 9. We've lost 6. We've scored 57 goals. We've conceded 31, and we have 72 points. To put things into perspective, that's 2 games short of a full season, and 72 points would have secured us 4th spot in last season's table with 2 games up our sleeve. That to me is just insane, given that we didn't really get going until after January finished, really, when we added a few more players. So even we were still drawing and losing games early on in January until the new recruits sort of kicked in. That to me speaks volumes of the change around that Eddie Howe has implemented in this squad, just how effective his brand of football is. And given that he's done so with the majority of players that he already had, who were probably either out the door or deemed not good enough. We've got Miggy, Joe Linton, Shah, who was definitely out the way. He was gone. St. Maximin was probably our one shining light, and it's quite ironic that he's probably the one that has the most question marks over him at the moment in this current setup because of how we're playing and how well everyone else has sort of come good. And now that we're not playing this sort of one outlet football to Maxi. But look, I'll let you have a rant about that because I think it's absolutely fantastic that that's our record. And sitting fourth in the league for the calendar year is just phenomenal. So yeah, take it away.
Yeah, I thought it was very important to bring up because obviously we're all a little bit down after the draw, and obviously we all wanted to finish the year on a high with a win, or in our case here in Australia, the new year on a high with a win on a Sunday morning, but it wasn't meant to be. But if you look at those stats, I mean, the fact that after 36 games we've got over 70 points, and that's a full calendar year, like you said, and the start of the year in 2022, we only just beat Leeds at the end of the month, which sort of kick-started our run. This current Premier League season, we've been missing Wilson, we've been missing Isak, we've been missing ASM. Bruno's missed various games when we had his child as well. So there's been issues that we've had to deal with throughout this full calendar year. And the fact that, like you said, Eddie's turned Joe Linton, he's turned Miggy, he's turned Cher, he's turned all these players into quality Premier League players. In Miggy's case, probably no jokes aside, probably the top 3 or 4 player in the Premier League this season without a shadow of a doubt. So the fact that we've done that without our club record signing and with still a lot of issues around the squad is amazing. And I think is a good reminder for all Newcastle fans that where we've come from, we were borderline shoo-ins to be relegated 12 months ago, and now we're complaining about nil-all draws and sitting third in the Premier League. I think there's a lot of water's gone under the bridge, and I think that we need to soak up how good this last 12 months has been with the squad, basically of an inherited squad by Eddie with a couple of additions. There's just so much scope for us to improve, and I think the first 12 months of this era has been fantastic and onwards and upwards for us. And I think it's a good perspective to see how far we've come and how good we've been and how we've expected wins. All of a sudden, we couldn't win a game. I think it was 14, 15 games. What was it? Our first win before Burnley last season. It took us 14, 15 games to get the first. In those stats, we've won 21 games out of 36. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's sensational form. Level. So yeah, it's next level. And again, we're not talking about our teams full of World Cup winners, full of $100 million players. We're talking players that were a lot of the time on the scrap heap from fans, from previous managers. It's not like we're inheriting a world-class squad. So credit to Newcastle and the coaching staff. And I think it definitely shows how well we've done and probably puts this morning result in a bit more perspective.
Indeed, and it's worth keeping in mind how far we have come. It's easy to get carried away as football fans, and recency bias aside, I think we've done fantastically well. And let's not get ahead of ourselves into that realm of expectation and delusion and sort of that feeling we deserve things rather than actually just appreciating what we're getting, because we are getting it at the moment, and it's just beautiful to have.
Expectations, okay. I mean, it's okay to expect to win. I mean, we're, as fans now of Newcastle, I think it's pretty safe to say we're expecting, going into most games, expecting to win, especially games at home. That's okay to have expectations, but obviously to lose your marbles over a 0-0 draw and start slagging off players and slagging off managers, I think that's probably a bit too far, and that falls under the umbrella of delusion. So I think we need to have a nice happy medium where we can expect to win, but do realise as well that we're not the finished product yet. We haven't got a full squad of challenging players who are going to be pushing the likes of Arsenal, Manchester City consistently. So enjoy the ride. Sure. Enjoy the ride, and let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
Well, I mean, we were all saying at the beginning of the season that, you know, we would take top half finish and a decent cup run. We've kind of got the cup run on the way, quarter final. So we can look forward to that and hopefully get to a semi, get a trip to Wembley. But yeah, let's just enjoy it for what it is. So yeah, one last thing before we go on and touch on to the Arsenal game. Bit of a quick turnaround. We've got a Tuesday night game against Arsenal down at the Emirates. It is an away game, isn't it? Yes.
Yep.
Yes, it is. Yeah, 7:45 kickoff. It is on Sky Sports for anyone that's got that. It'll be on Optus as per usual. So it'll be an early start for us here. So that's 5:45 in the morning for Brisbane.
Yeah,
6:45 for you. So yeah, early start, but it'll be worth it hopefully. Just a quick note: Gareth Cole played his last game for the Central Coast Mariners at the weekend. Bit of a boring game. He didn't really get much of the ball. Kind of watched a little bit of it. His side won it. He had a couple of flashes of runs at players and put a few decent balls in the box, but he is now no longer a Central Coast Mariners player, and he will be jetting off to join Newcastle very shortly. We still don't know what's happening in terms of his loan moves, or whether or not Eddie Howe's going to kind of keep him around in January. Don't really know what his official status is in terms of visas either at the moment. That's, I think, probably the biggest sticking point of all. But yeah, look, I think we're all pretty excited. We've got this Aussie guy, 10-year-old kid, sort of jetting off to Newcastle from this sort of like wonderful story of his. How excited are you to see where he ends up, and in sort of just how good he can develop into at the club?
Yeah, it's very exciting. I mean, we saw flashes of him at the World Cup for Australia, coming on and almost was the hero against eventual World Cup winners. He had that great chance in the last second where Emi Martinez made another brilliant last-minute save. But he's got a lot about him. He's a wonderful talent, and if not this season with Newcastle, I'm sure in the summer Eddie's going to have a long, hard look at him, and he may well be around the first team squad next season, which would be fantastic for him and fantastic for all Aussies to get behind and to follow his story and to see how far he can go. I mean, this kid's come not from nowhere, but he's made a very meteoric, quick rise into club, international, and now into Premier League club. So let's hope that rise continues very quickly and he can be donning the black and white shirt and playing at St James's Park very soon. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, he's already a bit of a legend when he sort of came home from the World Cup wearing his Newcastle strip. I thought that was a good touch from him. Immediately straight in with the fans. That was good to see. So on to the Arsenal game. Just a quick touch on that. We're actually not doing too bad for time. So obviously not the easiest of games to follow up a poor performance against Leeds is away to the current league leaders, and they are leading the league by a considerable margin at the moment, thanks to Man City dropping points and us dropping points. They are playing some pretty good football at the moment. Mikel Arteta's actually turned them around from last season. They will be no doubt looking forward to a bit of a revenge story after last season's game at St James's Park, the last home game of the season, where we effectively ended their Champions League hopes. They were sort of in and around that level. Spurs ended up finishing above them because we took some points off them, which was nice to have. But yeah, you got to worry about that payback. Now, do you see this being a really tough game down there? Do you think we'll actually go at them? Obviously, I think we match up quite nicely against teams that want to beat us as opposed to sit back and defend. So there is this weird thing where Arsenal are on fire and they're top of the league, but realistically, they're probably a better matchup for us right now in terms of how we play. So it's going to be a really, really interesting game. What's your thoughts on just the general game itself? And do you see any major changes for the squad?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fantastic test for us. I definitely do think it's going to suit us. The way Arsenal will come out and play, they're not going to sit back and defend. Obviously, them being at home, them being the league leaders, they're going to want to take the game to us, which suits us fine. We're a very disciplined team. We've got a good defensive shape. We don't concede many goals. I'll touch the wood now because just to make sure we're not going to concede 3 or 4 at Arsenal. But we have been keeping clean sheets lately, and we have been defending well. So teams that come onto us suit us defensively because we've been solid. And obviously, like I mentioned before, transition is probably our best form of attack at the moment. So I think against Arsenal, us being a big physical team, I think we might be able to get amongst them, let's say, and be able to have some joy on the counter attack against them. I do think there's going to be chances for us, and actually, as I said in the chat before, I actually quite fancy our chances. I think Arsenal had a massive result this morning at Brighton. They won 4-2, so that was a huge result for them. And I think Eddie will be, not that he wasn't looking at the Leeds game, he never does that. Eddie always looks at one game at a time, but definitely he marks games where previous performances we've been and we've felt come up short. I remember the Tottenham game, we got battered last year. This year we went to Tottenham, virtually battered them for most of the game and ended up winning 2-1. Leicester battered us this year we've gone to Leicester 1-3-0. Arsenal, if you remember last season, we weren't really in the game. I think they beat us 2 or 3, I think 3-0 in the end. We weren't really in the game. It was a pretty comfortable win for Arsenal. So there's no doubt in my mind that Eddie hasn't forgotten that trip to the Emirates, and he'll be wanting a better performance from us. And I think there definitely will be a better performance from us from that game. And in terms of changes, I think Wilson will come in, pending obviously his illness and how he feels physically. I think he needs to come in. And in terms of any other changes, I'm not too sure whether Eddie wants to unleash Maximum yet. I still think he's going to drip feed in minutes. I don't think he wants to throw the baby out with the bathwater in terms of that midfield combination. No. I still think we'll keep that same midfield and Joe Linton on the wing to try and get at them with his physicality. So I do see Wilson coming in, but besides that, probably the same 11. But like I said before to you guys in the chat, I do fancy our chances being on the rebound, being a team attacking us in transition. Arsenal, not their dual loss, but they've just come off a big result, maybe a bit of a letdown. I think there's a few things in my mind pointing to a positive result for us.
Yeah, I've kind of got this hopeful optimism about this game. Just from, if you remember back to our League Cup game, first game back after the World Cup break, we looked really sloppy on the ball. We managed to get through the game, but we didn't exactly inspire a lot of confidence. We were sloppy. We gave the ball away a lot. Passing wasn't as crisp as it normally is. Eddie Howe's obviously seen that, and that's clearly all they've worked on all week in training, because they came out against Leicester and were absolutely pinpoint lethal. Now, maybe in some weird aspect, the fact that we've played poorly against Leeds is that kick up the arse that they need to kind of really push on and sort of go at the next club and try to put things right. As you said, look, I think we match up better against those teams that want to attack us. So if we can exploit space in behind against Arsenal, then I think they are conceding goals. They are scoring goals for fun at the moment. That's the only thing, but we do have a very good defense. I think if we keep the pressure on, get the high press, and I think that is the key why Maxi won't play, at least won't start. I don't think Howe trusts him enough just yet to play the proper high press game. I agree with you that I think Wilson will come back in. I think if he's fit, he's played last night, but we don't know the extent of how sick he has been. It's not an injury; it's an illness. So it's up for debate what he's actually got, whether it's food poisoning or a cold or a bit of COVID. Who knows these days? But look, I think if he comes back in, I think we're a more fluid side with him in there. I think we will counterattack very, very strongly against a high attacking line Arsenal. And I think we will press them, possibly trying to create some chances up the pitch. I think we'll get a very good transition game going against them, as you said. And hopefully Miggy gets on the board again, gets another goal or two to his name, and we can come away with 3 points. I'd be happy with a point. It's not 2 points dropped if you get a point against Arsenal, but I don't think Eddie Howe knows any other way than to go and try and win a game. He's not the sort of manager that's going to really go there and try and shut up shop from minute one in the game. So look, I'm going to go for I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. I don't think we will win it, but I have hope that we might because of the good matchup. What's your prediction for the game?
I'm going a 2-1 win. I'm fairly confident. Like, as I said, I did mention before to you guys on the chat. I was fairly confident about this game. I just feel that our style, the way we attack at the moment, and our best form of attack is against teams who open up and play a high line and potentially are exposable on the break. So I think that's where we're going to get our joy. And look, like you said, Arsenal have been scoring goals for fun. So as good as our defense is, you're probably going to have to say they may get one to us, but I do think we'll be able to score a couple of goals against them. And Brighton scored 2, or actually scored 3 this morning. One of them was deemed offside. So Brighton definitely found a way behind that Arsenal defence and through that Arsenal defence. So there's no reason why we can't either. And I think spurring on after a disappointing result, as well as probably performance this morning, I think we'll come away from the Emirates with the chocolates and emerge there with our first victory since Big Andy Carroll's header, I think, back in 2010.
Yeah, it'd be nice. And look, we've done it against Spurs. We've played well against other top teams away from home this season. So, the belief should be there that we can do this. We're pretty much almost at full strength squad-wise in terms of the starting 11 at least. I mean, maybe Shelby gets in there and Isak, but other than that, I think we're getting some squad numbers there now. And it'll be interesting to see kind of leading into the January window whether or not we dabble. I'm sure we'll bring everything to everyone that we hear in a terms of a positive note. Not going to go in for the in the know stuff and completely batshit rumors, but we will try and cover everything that is a little bit sensible. And as you said before, look, there's word that we're putting bids in for Tielemans, a couple of other players who are coming to the end of their contract. So we may splash the cash. I know Eddie said that financial fair play is going to be a bit of a burden for us, but we've heard that the last 2 windows and have gone out and broke transfer records for the club each window. So let's take everything with a pinch of salt. I'm pretty sure if the right player is there for the right price, I'm pretty sure that the deal will get done. And I can't help but feel that the new owners will see that carrot dangling of Champions League football in the lucrative sponsorship deals and fast tracking their project a little bit from that as something that might be a little bit too good to pass up. So I guess that probably wraps us up for today. We'll catch up with everybody after the Arsenal game for a review of that game. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you've been watching on YouTube, hit that like, subscribe button. Drop some comments below if you want us to chat about anything in particular. And leave us a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And we will catch you on the next time around. Thanks very much, Dimi. Take care, mate. I'm going to go and have an early night, I think. Recover from last night.
Cheers, mate. Yeah, definitely a recovery after New Year's Eve.
Indeed. Just like well played for turning up for today as well, though. Keeping things going for the pod.
Cheers, mate.
Take care, mate.